Welcome to Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens. It is a great honor to introduce our guest today. She is the newly appointed Arizona Supreme Court Chief Justice, the fourth woman to serve in this role in Arizona history. Chief Justice Ann A. Scott Timmer has an impressive law background. She is also a true Zonie girl. She went to Arcadia High School here in the Valley. She studied at both the University of Arizona and Arizona State University, and she is a deep contemplative thinker with a true passion about justice for all. In fact, that is the name of her ambitious strategic agenda, and justice for all. With 5 key goals, which include her plans for promoting access to justice in what she calls a legal desert in an actual desert, and maintaining public trust and confidence in the justice system. Chief Justice Ann Scott Timmer joins us now in the studio. Hi, Chief Justice. This is hard for me because we grew up together, so I want to call you Ann, but I know you deserve the Chief Justice name, and that is so amazing.
Well, only in the courtroom, so you're most welcome to call me Ann. So hello, Bonnie. It's so wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll talk about our time in high school in just a little bit, but I watched your swearing-in ceremony as Chief Justice, and that was in July 2024, and in your remarks, you said how much you love your work and the people you work with. And here's a quote from you. You said, "Even when we disagree, often passionately, no one acts unprofessionally, no one yells, no one holds grudges. We recognize that these are tough, close cases with room for disagreement among people who are reasonable." Love that. So this kind of civility has really become increasingly rare in Arizona and across the nation. We can't seem to speak without becoming unhinged on difficult topics. We see this in our homes and workplaces. We see this in political debates, and even on our airplanes. And we can all learn from this respectful judicial behavior that you described. So as Arizona's Chief Justice, can you provide basic tips, perhaps ground rules, for how we can actually listen to each other without getting emotional or allowing disagreements to get elevated?
Well, sure. I do think I'm very, very lucky that I actually do work at a place where you still can engage in this kind of civil dialogue and disagree with each other without it raising to the level of being just a real emotionally fraught situation. So as far as tips, I suppose, I always start with trying to have some humility in your life. I mean, come on, we're all smart, but we're never the smartest in the room. There's always somebody that is smarter than you are, or somebody that has a different viewpoint than you do.
Oh, sure.
And it's really an opportunity to learn from them and to just simply listen. So if you kind of remember that, I think that's something that just, I want to listen instead of talking at people. Listen to those people. Even if your mind is not going to be changed and you know it, at the very least, you hear the other side of a position that you might hold, and it gives you insight into the strength of your position or why others are feeling that way. So I think that's the number one tip. The other one is to just try to keep your cool. And I know in
That's
judges,
a tough one.
It is a tough one, and in fact, I just came back from a leadership conference that was talking about that, and they were giving tips for the judges in the room to how to keep your cool. Take a breath, be silent for a beat or two, breathe in a couple times before you react and talk. And I would recommend that to people as well. If you feel yourself heating up, and we all have those moments, just stop for a second, even turn away, breathe deeply a few times, and then blow it out, and then respond.
Absolutely. Well, I know as a journalist, I'm really interested in what somebody has to say who has a completely different point of view than I might have, or maybe the common thought out in the world. And I'm fascinated by that. I want to know how they came up with their opinion. What happened in their life that made them think the way they do. And for that, I think we can all grow. We can all understand each other a little better. Thank you for those tips. I will write those down. I will remember that. Chief Justice Timmer, your number one rule in your 94-point ambitious strategic plan is promoting access to justice. And I love this. You said that we can create a justice system that is a shining beacon for everyone to resolve their legal issues, But if those people can't access that system, what good does it do us? Well, you've stated we are in a legal desert within an actual desert. I love that. We don't have enough lawyers to go around, particularly in Arizona's rural communities. So please elaborate and share some of the points that you would like the courts to do to make everything more accessible, less intimidating in a complicated legal system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Courts actually run the court system and they run the practice of law. So in that way, we're very unlike the U.S. Supreme Court, which just simply decides cases. We do on a state Supreme Court a lot more. So for me, I mention that because that is the whole reason that I have stuck around this long to become the Chief Justice, because it gives me an opportunity to kind of nudge the system in a direction, that I think it should go to serve people. And so, as far as access to justice, you just said it. We've got a great system, but what type of meaningful access to justice is there? And I'm talking about civil justice. If you can't afford the lawyers. One, there aren't enough lawyers in Arizona. I know that would surprise a lot of people looking at all the billboards around, but
Right, you hear a lot of advertising for sure.
A lot of advertising, but we're actually 49th out of 50 states in
Shocking.
terms of numbers of lawyers per capita.
So young people, if you hear this is the career to go into, right?
It
the
is.
smartest and the best.
And so among that, as you mentioned, the rural areas are really light in lawyers. There just aren't enough. And younger people don't want to seem to go to those areas. They want that urban lifestyle. So while we really don't have much difficulty attracting people to Phoenix, to Tucson, maybe not as much to go out to a rural area. And the third impediment, of course, is even if you find a lawyer, they're very expensive. And so who can afford it for their consumer debt problems or their landlord-tenant problems or family law if they are getting divorced or custody matters, that type of thing. We know that, so it's really incumbent upon us to see what can we do to get legal services for people that can still safely deliver those services to the public. So one of the things that we have embarked upon, and Arizona, oddly enough, we're actually one of the most creative states in the nation when it comes to these things. So we've created, the Supreme Court has created, and we now license people to be what we call licensed paraprofessionals. And they can practice law in certain designated areas. And we test them, we do background checks, and they have an ethics code, and they are actually affiliate members of the Bar Association as well. So they practice in areas where you pretty much don't see lawyers. So in what we like city courts and stuff for small dollar matters, if you have a dispute, or if you have a misdemeanor crime where there's no jail time involved. But we also allow it for family law because we really just don't have enough people that are practicing in that area. And as I said, it's expensive. So most people try to navigate the system on their own. So we now have about 60 plus of these licensed paraprofessionals in the state. I want to do more, keep going. So what we're working on right now is something called community justice workers. So these are people who already work, they're already employed around the state in social service agencies, et cetera. And if we can license them to, okay, you can deliver legal advice on consumer debt, landlord-tenant, housing issues, those kinds of things, and have them under the supervision of one of our legal aid firms that we have here in Arizona, then they can give that kind of advice. And so they're already planted around the state. And so that's the next step of what we're doing. And we've got several more.
Now, how do people find those folks?
Well, right now you go to for the legal paraprofessionals, you would just go to the Bar Association. And if you go to the Bar's website, which I think is azbar.org, then they will list attorneys, but they also list legal paraprofessionals. Now, right now, this is a fairly new program, so we just started this in 2019. So it's not a surprise to me that most of these folks have been longtime family law paralegals in firms already.
Okay.
So they're already in law firms. They don't have to be. They can be on their own, but I think there's maybe only one or two that have started to branch out. So my hope is that the legal profession in Arizona will develop along the same lines that the medical profession did about 70 years ago, when they added nurse practitioners and
Oh, that
physician's
big help.
assistants and
Yes.
all of those kinds of things, because you don't, just like you don't always need a doctor to do
Right.
everything, you don't
Right.
need the lawyer to do everything. So this is really the first step down that path, and already other states are starting to follow. I just saw the Texas Chief Justice just yesterday, and he said, yes, he had asked us for information, and then they had their own task force, and now they have just embarked upon the same thing.
So smart. I love that. And I think when I was listening to you that you said that Arizona was the first state to create the self-help centers, which I know I've used. And for, things like guardianship and conservatorship, and I'm not sure if I said that right, but there are a number of needs that you need to file paperwork for, that if you can do it, you can save yourself a whole boatload of money.
Yeah.
And they're not hard to do. They just take time, and you have to know what you need to do. And the clerks at the court system are fantastic sources for information as well. I found everybody to be super helpful.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
and that's great. And I think they're better in the urban areas because they have more resources than some of the rural areas. But even it's what some of these folks have done in the rural areas is just amazing. Really with no resources, they have created things because they love their community and they want to serve their communities. So they have come up with all kinds of ways to help people navigate what really is a complicated system. No matter how we try to make things as
Sure.
simple as possible, is probably at a time in your life that you're upset. It's odd, it's difficult, and it's intimidating, and we realize that, which is why we're trying to do things like self-help centers to help people. I tell you, my dream in my 5 years is, and I have a group working on this, is if you could walk into a self-help center, say in downtown Phoenix, and say, I just want to pay $50 for like a half an hour worth of somebody's time or an hour worth of someone's time, a lawyer or a licensed paraprofessional, just to walk me through how does the system work with like getting a divorce,
Just
and what
a
do I need
roadmap.
to do?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, just something like that, because I think most people are fine with, okay, now I just need to lay the land and then I can go. If you want to get more though, could you come to court with me? Could you just tell the judge what I'm saying? Help me out here because it's nerve wracking. Have that as well. I mean, that's the direction that I really want the.
So am I hearing
branch
you
to
right?
go.
Like a menu of services. So just a little bit of help, maybe
Yeah.
a little more help, and then the full blown, I need you by my side through this whole
Exactly.
court system. Yeah.
Yes.
Very exciting. Well, goal 2 is near and dear to my heart, and that is maintaining public trust and confidence in the judicial system. So losing trust in our judicial system is actually dangerous. And I know you've written that distrust in courts erodes respect for the law, which is foundational, of course, for our democracy. And as you know, public trust in our nation's foundational institutions and leaders has been declining for decades. Our faith in the government, elected officials, organized religion, science institutions, and news media, just to name a few, has fallen significantly. And so I was reading a report recently in Duke Law School, and that's where you earned your master's degree in judicial studies. I remember reading that as well. And that report says faith in the U.S. Supreme Court is at a historic low. Only 25% of those surveyed, and this was reported in 2022, said they had quite a lot of confidence in the U.S. Supreme Court. Quite a lot of confidence. Sounds nice, but if we are to trust that report, that's only 1 in 4 people who have a lot of confidence in the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. But here's what I love. You have a plan to encourage judges to basically be their own spokespeople, to when they make decisions, to come out publicly and explain what the rulings actually mean, and just as important, what they don't mean, without relying on the media or each other of us to translate them. And I think that is so brilliant. That's a great PR move. I love it.
Yes, well, thanks. Bonnie knows I come from a media family, actually, so I've never really been afraid of the media or afraid to talk to them.
And it was your dad that was in.
Yes, my dad was his whole life post World War II was with the Associated Press, and he ended up his career here in Arizona. He was the bureau chief of the AP. So I remember driving around with him all through Arizona to all the little papers and such. So I've always had a great deal of respect for the media. I know a lot of people are afraid to talk to them. Judges are afraid to talk to reporters. And I know that because
We're afraid to talk to lawyers.
I know. That is not a great recipe.
Right.
But as you say, the faith in the U.S. Supreme Court has been falling. And there's other studies that say faith in state courts is falling as well. Not as badly. We're 10 points ahead of the U.S. Supreme Court. But those guys make us look bad. People pay attention to the
Yeah.
U.S. Supreme Court. They've done some things that I don't admire either. And people think, well, that's how all courts act. And the truth is that's not true. We have an ethics code in Arizona, for example, that binds every judge and justice in a Supreme Court of what they can and cannot do. And if there's a real world consequence, if there's violations of that. We have in our Constitution a Judicial Conduct Commission, which is a separate entity from the courts, which will take any complaints and then adjudicate them. So if a judge steps out of line, there is a consequence. So some of the things that you read about that goes on with maybe with the U.S. Supreme Court, you're not going to find happen. But how do you communicate that? And so when we have controversial rulings come out, it breaks my heart, but I understand why people think, oh, well, that's because they politically want this outcome, when that's not, from my experience, true. But how do we communicate that to people? So I think that I've told judges in the branch, and I've told my own colleagues, we have to start getting out there and be our own media, our own educational institute, and can't really just send out these rulings and then wait for the media to try to digest them, which can be very complicated.
Oh, yeah, it
and
just
they
really
can get
depends
it wrong,
on the reporter, whether they
Right.
have a legal background or not, and how they explain it.
Exactly. And so I have, in fact, I've just have a group together that is mostly made up of non-lawyers and non-judges. They're mostly media people and marketing and that kind of thing. And I'd like to get a junior council as well of folks in high schools and in middle school to say, well, how are they learning? Because I know they're not reading this stuff. I mean, if we have to be on TikTok, we'll be on TikTok. But we need to be able to start communicating with everyone. It's so important, Bonnie, to me, but it's to everyone. I don't think people realize that we can't afford to let people take our courts away from us. And if we don't have trust in the courts, that's exactly what's going to happen. And then why would you respect the rule of law if you don't think you're getting a fair shake in the court system? You wouldn't. You would go to self-help. And so that's why, despite the people you see currently on the court, I mean, we come and we go. But the institution itself just has to remain rock solid, or I fear really for our democracy.
Oh, we are so grateful to have you in this position to be able to be making a difference and to bring back respect and trust of these public institutions. It's just so very important, as you mentioned. And Rule 3 is about promoting children, families, and communities, essentially the most vulnerable among us. Tell us about that.
It is. Well, there's a lot of initiatives there. I mean, we all can read the newspaper, watch the news, see what goes on. It's a tough world out there.
It is.
And one of the things that's been really on my mind of late is with youth, the good news is that fewer and fewer kids are getting arrested and prosecuted for delinquency.
Oh, that is
so
good
that's
news.
Great.
Yeah.
The bad news is, there's always another side to this, is that of the type of crime that is being committed, the delinquency acts rather, they're more violent than ever. And so there's a real increase, not only in our state, but nationwide, on youth violence and youth with guns, which can lead to just tragic circumstances.
Sure.
So I just had a youth violence summit for Arizona. So all 15 counties made up of folks from the police, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, the judges, kind of getting in, and the health services and mental health services folks, getting in one room. We did that last week for 2 days to okay, let's talk about this and what are the best practices and what can we do to steer these kids in the right direction. Because for them, they are just children. They're still children.
Absolutely.
And if the last thing that we want to do is just lock people up.
Yeah.
I mean, if that happens, they do everything possible to prevent that. Because if they're locked up, we know from evidence-based studies that if that happens, then the likelihood increases is that they will go on to a life of adult crime.
Sure.
And so we try to do diversion. We try to get people on the right path. But this increase in violence is very disturbing. So that's one thing that we're working quite a bit on, and hoping to, again, be more of a national leader on this, of what is the best way to strike that balance short of just locking people up.
Yeah, whenever I'm working on a proposition, or I'm working in some way with the courts, or experiencing something like your swearing in ceremony, I just really feel the compassion of the people working in the court system. And that comes across so strongly. I mean, it isn't people that are with a gavel, which, by the way, I loved. You've never actually
I've
used.
never actually had one.
You've got 12
I've got
gavels.
so many gavels, but
never actually used it.
No.
I love that. But you feel like judges and the legal system is such a harsh place if you're not aware. But if you spend any time, serving on jury duty, or watching new citizens being sworn in, you have such a swelling of pride, and such great respect for the people working in the system, because there is so much compassion there. There are people that are doing what they can to help. I mean, there's so many resources available to keep people from going back to a life of behind bars, from committing crime after crime, just because they are not, they're around, they go back to the same people that they've been around before, which have been people that have gotten them in trouble in the past. Or they don't have the money, so the only way they know to get the money is to steal the money, and so it's just this revolving door. But there's so many counties that are working hard on this, and I think people should know that. I think that's just truly commendable.
Yeah, I think, I've said this so many times. I just finished going to all 15 of our counties. It took me about a year and a half to hit all the counties and hit people working in each of the courts to see what their unique circumstances are. I mean, the people that are in the rural counties have different needs than urban. People on the southern border have different needs than up on the northern border.
Yeah.
And what struck me each time I went, and we would have people come in from the community to listen to their needs, but also see what court programs were there, because it gave them an opportunity to show them off. I was really struck by the caring that almost everybody I saw, from probation's in the judicial system. I don't know if people know that. Probation, and you had the court clerks, and just the regular people who are not given extra money for this. But as they say, they see a need, they come up with, well, how can we help? How can we do something to really serve people in the community? And every time I hear the courts criticized, or people thinking they're not fair, I think, boy, I really wish, how do we get that out, that people are so lucky in all their communities to have these people helping them, and what impact they've had on people's lives is just remarkable.
Well, as you mentioned, you said Arizona was one of the most creative states in solving tough problems. What also, I was in an Athena program yesterday, the Athena International Awards, and I was going through the 8 principles of how women lead. And one of them is collaboration. And so that's like all over you, Chief Justice, is collaboration, how to solve tough problems, is you're bringing people together, the right people, and then creating creative innovations. And I think it's going to work. I think it's awesome.
I hope, thank you. Well, how could I possibly know? I mean, there are 10,000 employees in the Arizona Judicial branch. There's no way that I know about every little problem or what's going on. And so at least what I've been trying to do, and it's not just me, the court has always done this, I think, which is why we've been innovative. Even my predecessors have always tried to encourage people, no matter what you're doing, if you see a problem and you have a solution, then hey, just let it go up the chain and let's give it a shot. We'll give it a try. And it's funny, I was just in Colorado this past week, and a few people, they kept calling that out, saying, Arizona, you guys are just known for, let's try something new, let's try something different, and let's then measure how it works, and if it is success, we'll implement it. And I do think that filters down to every, people in every part of the branch are not fearful of, like, let's give it a shot, let's do something new. So I think that's why it's developing that culture.
That is a wonderful reputation.
It's a great reputation to have.
I'd love to hear that. That is so cool. Well, goal number 4 is about judicial branch excellence and innovation, and this is about technology. And I love that you mentioned the use of artificial intelligence as a tool to help achieve this goal. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I love AI. I'm a total wonk when it comes to that kind of thing. And so I've been playing with that as soon as it came out.
ChatGPT?
Oh yeah, I love
Me too.
ChatGPT. It's
Me
it's great.
too.
It's a great, if anything, it's a great vacation planner. Kind of thing. This is everything I want to do.
Oh,
Now give me a plan. That
that's
kind of
awesome.
thing. But
Awesome idea.
it's very useful. So obviously, I can see the benefits for that. For
With
the
mundane
practice.
tasks.
Yeah, with mundane tasks. So with actually from a variety of things. So I've actually we have a partnership with the ASU, a Center for Forensics, and it was Forensics and Psychology, and now we just renamed it as soon as I took over to Forensics and AI, Artificial Intelligence. And my predecessor, Chief Justice Bob Brutnell, a great guy who is a trial court judge from, where is he from? Prescott, and then he's been on the Supreme Court.
I saw that.
And
I
then,
saw you mention
yeah.
Prescott High School.
That's
You've got
right, back
history
his high
there,
school
yeah.
folks. So he's agreed to chair it for me, and we have different groups to try to guide the branch on how do we safely, because again,
Right,
it's all
safely.
cool, new and shiny, but you don't want anything bad to happen with it. So how can the branch use it to replace mundane tasks, as you say? But then how can the user, that's where I'm most excited, how can the people that are not have legal training, but they're trying to navigate the system, how can they use it to help them with legal issues maybe they haven't confronted before? And so that's the kind of thing that we're working on. But we want them to go the right direction and not use some fly-by-night thing that will get them in more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, it's also new and really exciting. Well, your fifth goal is enhancing professionalism and leadership within our justice system. You want to cultivate an environment that brings the best, the smartest, the brightest people, the hardest working, the most ethical people into the system. And I think that small businesses everywhere struggle with that. So what's your plan? And I'm sure lots of small businesses would like to know what the answer is for that.
Well, we're never going to be able to compete with the private sector for people.
yeah.
The pay differential is just too great. Although we still have pensions at least for non-judges. Judges do not have pensions in Arizona anymore. They were taken away some years ago, which has been problematic, actually, to attract the best and brightest lawyers to be judges when why would I give up my salary when I have nothing on the back end as a pension, at least used to kind of offset that difference. So it's actually one of my goals. I've already talked to the governor about that, about we need to put judges back at least in state employee retirement to offer them something, because we'll never be able to pay them as much as they could make in the private sector. For everyone else, though, we are losing people right and left. And it's not to private sector, it's to other governments. Because state government is the worst paid. Does not pay as well. It is very unfortunate for me. It does not pay as well as the cities, and it does not pay as well as the county.
Interesting.
So all of at a time, of course, when everyone wants more technology and more e-filing and more all of these things with
Bigger
technologies,
budgets. Yeah.
we lose our tech people to City of Phoenix, City of Scottsdale, City of Peoria. They all pay better. Surprise. And then the Maricopa County as well. And so that's problematic. We've just did an employee differential study for the same positions from state to, and you compare it to city and county, and we're at a 17.6% less pay.
Ouch.
And so of course we can't compete with that. So that is my absolute number one budget goal for this upcoming cycle is you need to give our employees raises. And I've talked to the governor about that as well.
Oh, good for you. Well, good luck. That's a really great goal. So what do you say, Chief Justice, to accusations that governors and presidents try to pack Supreme Courts for political gain?
Well,
I know you wrote a whole opinion in the Arizona,
I did.
What was it, AZ Central?
AZ Central, my
Yeah.
op-ed. When I first took over as Chief Justice, which hasn't been that long ago, it was July 1.
Right.
But I might as well come out strong and say, I get it. I can't be critical of people for not having faith in the judiciary, and then looking at Arizona in particular when you look about, what's gone on. And so Governor Ducey, he expanded the Supreme Court from 5 to 7. When I joined, it was 5, now it's 7. For the reason he gave, because we needed help. And fortunately for him, he asked all of us, do we need help? And we all said, no, we don't. Well, he gave it to us anyway. So that wasn't a good look. right from the get-go. And our Court of Appeals, they've expanded under him from, I think they gave additional 6 positions. Again, didn't need it. And so that opens you
So
up
it makes
for
you wonder
criticism,
why. Yeah.
yes, of why. So I understand why people are thinking, well, sure, he just wants to do this. And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I couldn't possibly speak
We can't speak for him.
for Governor Ducey.
Sure.
However, I will tell you, as far as the Arizona Supreme Court goes, that it was always contemplated that eventually it would go to 7, just as the state grew. And so that building that we're in was built with the idea of they had 2 extra chambers.
Okay.
The bench in there had places for 7 people. So, it's not really up to me. It's not a court's function to say when you need someone. I actually think that expanding the court from 5 to 7 and allowing 2 more people to be on the court with, for these very difficult issues, you can have a diverse viewpoint. Having 7 people in a state this size is probably about right. So, but I understand why people were thinking, okay, great, this just packs it with Republicans. And I understand that, and I actually don't think that people will probably be fully comfortable until there's a balance. And it will happen. Eventually it'll be half Democrats, half Republicans or independents or whoever. Because I think as a society, we're all just more comfortable when one side doesn't dominate anything. You feel like, okay, it's going to all come out okay in the mix. So I can tell you that from my 6 colleagues who are all Republicans, I'm a Republican, actually one's an independent, politics never actually comes in to talk about any decision. It just doesn't happen. But from the outside looking in, it seems that way. So that's why I understand it. My understanding of how people view the courts.
Sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate you answering that. It's kind of a tough question. I want to share with our listeners your incredible background. So Chief Justice Ann Scott Timmer has been serving on the Arizona Supreme Court for 12 years, and you were Vice Chief Justice for 5 of those years. And of course, you were appointed by Governor Jan Brewer. Okay, we got that right. So before that, she was the Chief Judge on the Arizona Court of Appeals for 24 years, appointed by Governor Jane Hull.
No, I was on the Court of Appeals for 12 years, and I was the 24 altogether with the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
I'm not that old.
I was trying to figure out how early you started in your life. So thank you for clarifying that. You also worked in private practice in Phoenix for 15 years. Yes. So thereby, don't do the math because my math is all wrong for you guys. So let's go back a little further. You were always a smart, diligent student. Now, I know this firsthand and very involved in activities at Arcadia High School. And I know this, of course, because we were friends. We were in the same class, and you were a pom-pom girl, and I was a cheerleader. And we rooted for the Titans through countless football and basketball games together, which was so much fun, probably the most fun I've had in my whole life. And I also know kind of a different side, too, and this has stayed with me for decades, that you were held up at gunpoint as a teenager while selling movie tickets at a Scottsdale movie theater right around the corner from where we're recording right now, and not just once. So tell us about that. What my other question, I've got to hear about this, but my other question is did that have any influence on you wanting to study law after that?
Yeah, it was just right around the corner from here. You can probably see it from here. It was the old Camel View Theater before they tore it down and moved it into Scottsdale Fashion Square at this point. So yes, I sold tickets, and back then, it really wasn't a well-attended theater. It was very slow. So I was the...
It was kind of a quiet area.
It was a very quiet theater, and actually we found out years later why. But it was very quiet, so it was just me selling tickets and selling concessions. So I would sell the ticket, and then I would take a giant step to my left and sell the concessions if you wanted any. So it was that kind of thing. So it was very isolated. And so this man came in, and he said, I'm going to shoot you if you don't give me the money. And I'm like, well, then, I'll wrap it with a bow. Here you go. What can you do? But it was scary. But you know how you always think that how will I react in that kind of a situation? And turns out I found out that I actually am pretty calm about these things.
Super calm.
And so
we were all freaked out, but Anne was just like, it's just another Saturday.
I remember they printed it. This is how Phoenix was a small town back then. This is like 1976, I think. And
Probably.
And they printed it in the Arizona Republic that this happened. This is newsworthy
That's
that
big news.
this girl got held up. And they printed my name and my address in the paper.
No.
And my grandmother, I remember
Why?
freaking out that they're going to come and find me. And I even thought at the time thinking, that's a little odd that they would do that. But that was the standard practice. They would put victims'
And their
names and addresses in
addresses.
the paper, which is crazy.
I am so
I know,
appalled.
isn't that
That
funny?
is.
But then the same
seems so
guy came
irresponsible.
back later, and then he did it like 4 or 5 times. And so the police thought, okay, this is again, I guess crime was not heavy back then. So they wanted to set up a sting operation. And so they put they said, if he comes back, just pull this dollar bill out and it will set this alarm out. And it will cause these cameras to film him. And we'll have people in the parking lot ready to get him. I mean, like all of this stuff. And it was like a Friday night. So we had 2 of us on duty. And so I was selling the tickets again, somebody else doing concessions this time. And here he comes again. Well, I recognize him. So I'm thinking, okay, this time, he's going to get it. So I pulled the thing, but they didn't tell me that it would actually sound like a camera. I'm like, golly.
Oh,
So I think he's going to shoot me because I
Right,
can hear
right.
the camera. So I start speaking really loudly, hoping he doesn't hear the
You're so
camera.
smart.
And then the guy, so he gets the money, off he goes, and I'm waiting to see what happens. And none of these fancy things happened.
Nobody jumps out of
No,
behind
so
cars.
I had to call him on the phone saying he was just here, and then they went out and gang tackled him. So I had to go to the police station after the first time to even do a sketch, which is that's difficult to do. Of how
So that you were the sketch artist.
yeah, well, they had a sketch artist that I spoke to, yes,
Okay,
to put it
and you were
together.
telling him, no,
yeah,
no,
it's
not
very
quite like
difficult.
that.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Difficult to do.
But you'd seen this guy,
then
3, 4 times?
Yeah, well, no, just the twice, just
Did
the
he
first time.
recognize you?
First time.
Did he-
I don't know. He didn't say so. But then I had to go
Just
to
wondered
court.
if you had some kind of
I know.
rapport at this point.
I had to go to court to testify against him.
Oh,
But,
scary.
and I got all the way to the hallway waiting, and they resolved it before he pled out, so I didn't have to testify, which was a bummer. But did it influence me? No, I decided in Mr. Schiffino's American History class when I was 15 that I wanted to be a lawyer.
That's
Skip
awesome.
Schiffino, he was so enthusiastic, and I thought I want to be a lawyer. And so I'd already decided that. So it was a little bit of a bird's eye view into the legal system, but that
For sure, at a young age.
yes.
Wow. I will always remember just how cool you were through that whole thing. Well, Arizona Supreme Court Chief Justice Ann A. Scott Timmer, I want to thank you for your hard work helping us uphold the law and the rule of the land and dispensing fair justice to everyone. And as your friend, I am so proud of what you've accomplished. And I truly expect to see you on the U.S. Supreme Court bench one of these days soon. So, Ann, thank you so much for coming and talking with us and giving us some insight into the court system.
Well, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for having me. It's such an important topic, and it's such a delight to see you and talk with you. And I'm proud of you as well. Everything, wonderful thing that you've done.
Oh,
It's amazing.
It's so exciting to reconnect with you. I just love talking with you. Thanks so much, Ann. Well, here's something else to love about Arizona Supreme Court Chief Justice Ann A. Scott Timmer. She chose to use a picture of an Arizona Red Rock monument on the cover of her strategic agenda. She says, "Our commitment to delivering justice to everyone in our state is as resolute as Courthouse Butte in Sedona." And I just think that's so great. So this is Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens.